Welcome back to the Partner Spotlight podcast with your host, Lex Mason, president of Weathermatic. This week, I'm joined by Ryan Malone, director of maintenance at Malone's Landscape out of the greater Seattle area. Ryan, like me, is a second generation coming along to help grow the family business. Ryan was responsible for helping take what his family had built from design build practices into now recruiting a leading list of customers and clients in the commercial landscape space. So if you're ready, let's get growing. Ryan Malone, thank you so much for joining us, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. I'm super excited to just have a great conversation today.
Absolutely.
So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Malone's, I know obviously we have something in common, right? Family business. Always have to hold down the fort with that. I know there's ups and downs and everywhere in between when you're working in family businesses. But let's probably first start off by hearing kind of a little bit about your background. Where were you born and raised, and kind of went to school and just kind of your upbringing?
Totally. So I was born and raised in Maple Valley, Washington. Been here all my life. I actually moved out to a little town in Enumclaw now. So got out of the valley, but really kind of been around landscaping my whole entire life. Obviously, my parents started the business roughly 32 years ago, but really kind of was always riding around in trucks as a young kid and as a baby and all that stuff. But it really didn't come into play until about 6 years ago. Kind of leading up to that, I played baseball all of my life. And so that kind of took me through my college days and years, about 5 years. And I think just about every division of baseball you could play in, all the way up to the Division I level. So been a ride to get here, but definitely, was always with the family business. It's always like kind of want to do your own thing, kind of coming into college and all that. So I was really kind of looking at going into the real estate industry, and then had the opportunity to take over kind of and dive kind of head first in the deep end on the Malone's Landscape Management side, our maintenance company. And that's kind of how all this took off. And that was back in 2017. So,
man, love hearing it. So baseball, a big Mariners fan of being up there in Washington, or do you?
I love the Mariners. We got to get to a World Series, but
yeah,
one day.
Well, good luck. Same thing here. I grew up playing baseball and football were our two, family sports. So pretty much from the day I could walk, I think I had a bat and a ball in my hand. So I didn't make it as far as you, but played all the way through high school, played a little intramurals in college, but still the point to all that, I'm actually coaching my eldest daughter's T-ball team right now. So she's 5. And boy, is that humbling, trying to keep 10 or 11 rugrats all focused and kind of share the love for the game when you only get the ball about once every 15 minutes. So that's been a challenge.
That's probably a huge challenge. I can't even imagine. I don't know if I can do the coaching thing. We'll see, but
yeah, it's been a learning experience. So I know now you're training for an Ironman event. I know I've been following along and seeing kind of some of the training progression there. So man, how on earth did you get talked into or motivated into doing something like that? That is quite the event.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's a little crazy, and I guess I got some screws loose up top, but really it kind of all started coming out of baseball and that collegiate athletic sphere and just being competitive. I kind of came out of college and really started getting into mountaineering. And so I ended up climbing Mount Rainier over here and Mount Hood and a bunch of different mountains around here in the Pacific Northwest. And those are really long days. I mean, it takes 18 hours to do Rainier and, on a good day, car to car. So that kind of got me into that endurance space. And then my wife, Eleni, really got me into running. And so I've been doing half marathons and things like that of a very small scale. And then I had the opportunity to sign up for an Ironman, a full Ironman for my first one. So,
oh my gosh. I think Screws Loose might be I know
that might be
a good friend. So. And I was on his show not so long, Robert Klinkenbeard, but I think he's done a handful of them. So if you haven't gotten connected with him, I know he's got the same Screws Loose, I think, to jump from a half marathon, which is something I've done 2 or 3 of all the way to Ironman. Man, we'll be thinking about you. That's quite the jump.
Like most things, I like to just jump into the deep end, man, and figure it out, right?
Well, I love it. Well, then let's take that segue into some kind of like turning points in the career. So, you played baseball all the way through school. That was the college trip, and then obviously you have your family business over here. So, was there any chapter in between baseball and jumping into Malone's, or what was kind of the turning point that said, all right, time to get to work, and I want to come do it at the family business? What really led to that?
Yeah, totally. I was studying to get my real estate license actually, kind of the last year of college. I wasn't playing baseball anymore. My years were up, so I was just kind of finishing up. And one day, my parents called me up and said, "Hey, we've got a manager that's exiting, and it's really been a tough position to fill for us, and it's been on the maintenance company that's pretty much been neglected." We started out as a design build firm for since 1991. The maintenance company came in 2002, so it was a little bit later.
Okay.
But really, they called me up and said, "No pressure. Think about it." I was living with all my buddies over in Eastern Washington, having a great time.
Yeah.
It was a lot to think about at the time, but uh, the more and more I thought about it, it was kind of that pride thing, in the name on the jersey thing was, I need to do this for the family, and jump right
Yeah.
in first and figure this thing out. So I ended up dropping out of college, and the rest is history. So
Man,
that was kind
that's
of
well, and I'll tell the full story at some point here. I don't know if I'm quite ready to do the whole thing yet, but I had a very similar experience. My senior year of school, I went to Baylor in Waco, Texas, and certainly had the plan of, hey, I'd love to come work for the family business. I had a couple opportunities present themselves, towards actually the beginning of my senior year that were pretty appealing. And then we had some really just some things happen here at the business that caused me to effectively, not technically, but it might as well have been drop out for about 90 days to come home and fight some battles that we weren't anticipating having to do. And it was the pride in the door, right? It's the name on the door. And we did not start Weathermatic, right? We're 80 years old now, but my family bought the business about 30 years ago now. But that pride of ownership of, it wasn't even a question, right? When something went sideways, it wasn't my dad Mike calling, hey Lex, would you mind coming home and helping me with this? It was, hey, this is the situation, this is what's going on. And it was okay, and saw him, 2.5 hours later, you're there. That's what you do when your family livelihood, depends on it. And thankfully today is a very different day than, yeah, gosh, almost 10 years ago now. But you drop it, you jump in, you help, and you never look back. And I think it's done pretty well for you there too. So
100%. I wouldn't have changed it for the world. So
I love hearing it. So obviously going from baseball into that, some kind of, what were anything that you did to kind of prepare for, or that you've done maybe since being in the business to kind of jump further into the industry? I know neither one of us were born with just intrinsic knowledge of how the businesses that we're in work. So anything that groups that you've been a part of to help get yourself further immersed into this landscape and green industry there, or that you might still follow along with?
yeah, no, I think I kind of early stages, I just really jumped into like YouTube University, right? Just trying to gain as much knowledge as possible about what I was going into in the commercial maintenance space. So that's kind of my first thing. And then I started really following. We had the subscriptions to all the lawn and landscape management, just magazines and things like that, newsletters. So that kind of came second, and I really started to get some really good industry knowledge and kind of start to see who the players are out there, and just who the kind of the influence driven folk were, the Marty Grunders and people of the world. And I kept seeing Marty Grunder, come up in the landscape management deal, and that was when I kind of found out about Grow, the conference, and that was probably 5 years ago now, maybe four. So I ended up bringing it to my dad one day, and I just said, "Hey, we should go to this thing and just check it out." Marty seems like a real good guy in the industry to learn from, and looks like he's got a really good conference going here that brings a lot of industry knowledge together. So, as a young guy, for me, not knowing a ton about the industry, I felt like that was kind of a big step for us to just get our foot in the door and just start networking. Um,
Absolutely.
and that's when ended up meeting Jason and Jim Cali with McFarland Stanford and the Grow Group.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting they talked to us, and we ended up signing up to be in the ACE peer group program. So we've been in that for 4 or 5 years now. I think it's coming up on 5 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Really,
What they're doing to help, people of really of all ages. And I know, the Moores, they had a similar story, right? They're the second generation taking over family business, and found Marty and found Jim and Jason, have gotten plugged in those groups, and what those guys are doing to really help the industry upskill, right, and create community, because it can be lonely out there, right? Trying to figure out all these problems and thinking that you got to do it on your own. And the beautiful thing about this business is there's very little that you actually have to do alone, because of how many people exist that want to help and teach and help you grow. So that's been great. I know we're looking forward to Banff, the Banff Summit,
yeah.
here coming up. That'll be a fun trip.
But yeah, that was kind of I would say, one of the biggest turning points for me was getting around people that have been in the trenches for years and years and years with their own companies, and really diving into a lot of the deeper back end things that we don't always think about. So that was kind of a springboard for me, especially not having a ton of, background in this industry, and just kind of jumping into it. So that was kind of the springboard there.
So Ryan, give some people some advice. So I get this message probably is the number one thing that I have people reach out to me about is, so I turned 30 this past year, and obviously been at Weathermatic the whole time, and have had the honor of kind of elevating through the organization. But I get questions, when we're at the Grow event, or we're at ACE, or we're at there, right? The kind of the second generation or third generation, sometimes folks coming up and going, "Hey, I'm being put into a management position, or I'm being put into a leadership position, and I'm half the age, or 10 years the junior of some of the folks that I'm responsible for leading." So Ryan, how would you coach others that are out there in the industry? What have some of your experiences been that have enabled you to be a great young leader?
No, that's an awesome question, because I think one of the biggest things I struggled with, in the early years, and even still, every once in a while I get that imposter syndrome of, like,
Yeah,
way younger than all these guys that are either my competitors or even people that are working for me. How do I get them to understand that either I know what I'm talking about, or that I know that I'm putting my best foot forward for them to take care of the company, and take care of everybody's, jobs and livelihood here. That was a huge one. And I think it's proximity to people that have done it before, and learning from those. I've learned a tremendous amount from just being in that peer group, from these guys that are much older than me, that have been able to teach me lessons, and save me some of that time and heartache of going through things on my own, and learning from those lessons. I've been able to learn from theirs.
Yeah.
So I've gained a ton of knowledge just that way. But it's definitely something that we've got to overcome, especially being younger. I've always been, younger than almost everyone working for me. So it's been a tough to get that respect in the beginning, but I think,
and I think that's where these groups, like you mentioned, ACE and Grow, right? Jim, Jason, and Marty, and then I brought up Robert here a minute ago. I think for a message to the younger guys and gals out there that are, whether you're coming up in your family's business, I mean, particularly in your family's business, or something else, and you're being put, or you're running for a management and leadership position, having people see you taking that self-improvement and just knowledge advancement seriously. Do they see you at these events? Do they see you getting better? Do they see you, candidly spending money on improving what and kind of the group around you? so that you're not the only one making the decision. You're taking your decisions and your thoughts to people that have done it before, that have built large businesses or been a part of large businesses, and that community group. I think it speaks volumes to the people on your team that are looking up to you, regardless of age. If you're, nothing happens by accident. And so being intentional about being involved in those groups and associations and learning, and then bringing that back to the team to show that, hey, this is not we're not just swagging it, right? This is not just we're not just making gut decisions. We're bringing in subject matter experts, and we're pulling on the experience of people, far beyond our years, with a couple lifetimes worth of learning experiences. I think that's been one thing, at least on our end, of, yeah, we go and we sponsor some of those, being, in the manufacturing and the vendor position. But we're not sitting at the table in between the sessions. We're in the sessions. We're learning. We're building relationships here with other, manufacturing and software companies to advance, what I know and what I can bring to the team. So I think those groups are equally as valuable from that perspective of just the team seeing you reach and seek improvement and those kind of things.
Yeah, 100% agree in that.
So let's kind of pivot into what are you doing now? So, what is Malone's right now? Obviously, there's always kind of outside forces that are hurdles, right, to growth, whether it's labor, whether it's the changing immigration policy and emission standards and things like that. So what are some of the battles or some of the bottlenecks that you're facing right now at Malone's?
Really, it feels like we've kind of gone through phases. And early on for me, it was kind of overcoming a not totally great culture that I had to kind of transform and really spend a ton of time getting that culture right for our team. So early on, it was labor, attracting people to come work in the field for us, and getting good qualified guys out there and on the properties. So that was kind of an early on thing that seemed to be for multiple years, was getting people in the door,
yeah,
and then retaining those good talent. That's really kind of, with our focus heavily on our culture and taking care of our team and really being there for them, and making sure they have the right equipment and tools to succeed in their job. That kind of started to eliminate that problem. Now we've got people just lining up to come work for here. Awesome. Here at Malone. So that was a huge hurdle for us, the last, half of those 5 years. Right. And I think now
give us a tip, buddy. So give us a tip. So everyone out there is looking for it. How do we, there's that word or that phrase of destination company, right? Where you do have a line of people and you have applications on the desk every day. So give us an inside scoop of one or two things that you've done to reverse that culture and create that stream of applicants and stability there.
Totally. Well, one thing I think our team has done a really good job about is really not just, we've kind of flipped that thing of client first. It's our team first, right? We can't take care of the client unless our team is in a good position and is enjoying their job day in and day out. We spend 80% of our life at work, or some crazy number, right? So we've got to be able to have a team in place that is ready to go every single day. And whether it's someone picking up someone else, and when they're having a tough week or a tough day, at least we know that someone's got their back. So we've done a really good job of creating a team and basically bringing out people from the almost the labor position to now, then they made it to the crew leader. And now I've got people that have come all the way from labor to now they're an operations manager, showing them a path in a career path they're not just going to be a crew lead their entire life. So we've promoted from within for years and years now, to where that's really positioned us to, hey, there's more than just being a laborer, or there's more than just being a crew lead. Malone's is going to give us a chance to work up from within if we want to pursue that. So I think that was a big thing, was creating opportunity, and then growing. We have to grow or else we get stagnant. If we're not growing, I can't create that opportunity for these folks.
Absolutely.
And so that was a big thing. An opportunity came with the growth that we started to have once we took care of business.
I think that's a thing that a lot of people miss in the kind of culture development aspect is people always come, right. I had an interview, I had a couple interviews yesterday, but one in particular, right. They asked the great question at the end of, hey, what do you see as a career development path here? How do we have advancement? And, and I meet with team members here of, hey, how do we, what's the next step? And for the people that are, ambitious and have that kind of drive in them to advance for the organization, that's an element that a lot of owners and operators leave on the table is there is zero advancement opportunity if we're stagnant or shrinking. And so we have to be a healthy business that provides opportunity of advancement. And for people, number one, we have to grow, right? We have to be, we're a growing organization or we're a dying organization, as is the old saying. And that's an important dynamic too, when we're meeting with individuals here, and given that it's, hey, you might not be able to control the growth of the whole thing, but how do we multiply what you're doing in your current position today that's going to contribute, right? Small incremental change over time. So how do we multiply what you're doing today? How do we get better at what's in your responsibility today so that we can create more opportunity for you to advance and backfill and those kind of things? But growth is typically the formula that leads to advancement.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things, kind of getting a hurdle of that particular, mistake that we can make is I had to pull some of my best crew leads out of the field. You're worried sick that, oh, well, we're going to lose those accounts if I pull these guys off. Well, that wasn't the case, right? We were able to find someone that could do just as good or maybe a little less than they were, and then train them to be able to take on that responsibility. And so that was a big concern in the beginning. So I can see where people get caught up.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we did our software team here, one of our best, like, sole contributor, like, individual developers. He was looking for, hey, how do we grow? And we hit our metrics that, enabled us to set up, basically we do engineering in pods, kind of like you do, crews, right? And so it was time to add a pod. And it was nerve-wracking, to say the least, to allow that individual to go, okay, time for you to lead a pod. So instead of him spending 95% of his time, coding and developing here for us, now that's going from 95% down to 15%, and he's leading teams and, auditing work that's being submitted, and, pushing it into production to actually for people like you to log in and see it. But man, he has elevated. He's shown that he can be such a great leader and a developer of culture himself, by putting his people first, but also creating that atmosphere of, hey, we've got to build incredible things that bring value so that it gives you all the opportunity as well to grow like he has. So that's great. So talk a little bit about how, I know we've been working together here for a couple of years. So how is the SmartLink, has it brought any value to the business? How are you guys using it to kind of leverage, whether it's labor or whether it's bringing better service to clients? How have you guys used SmartLink at Malone's to set yourself apart?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty funny little story. When I was first kind of dabbling with you guys and talking and starting that communication, I was real worried about it, right? You see those numbers and some of these things that, what it's going to cost, and not totally knowing, okay, are we going to get that back out of it? It's paid back tenfold, probably 1,000-fold for us. I mean, it's been a huge game changer. I think this year and then last year have been pivotal for us. Finally getting to the amount of controllers that, we're really starting to see the payoff is, the time and gas and labor that is saving for us is just tremendous. And it was really something hard to grasp in the beginning, because you see this big number and what we're trying to sign up for and get to a portfolio of this many controllers, right? And how are we going to do that? But your team and Perry has been especially helpful in my journey with getting our team to where we were. And for some context, we've just crossed the 6-figure mark in 1 month for our irrigation repair services, and we couldn't have done that without the Weathermatic program. So it's it's been a game changer, and what you guys are doing is cutting edge, man. It's been
And
huge.
that's not on some massive portfolio of maintenance. So you're doing six figures in irrigation repair and that division. That's it. Well, man, congratulations. That's a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment that a lot of people don't see, that kind of income level and just repair. That's pretty incredible.
It's been
Uh,
huge.
what else you got going on? So I know this industry now, it feels like, 10 years ago when I first got into it, everybody was so resistant to trying new things and, whether it's new technology or new vendors entering the market or whatever it might be. And now it's almost like a race of people trying to find the next best thing and, kind of get an edge and shave off labor, shave off time and things like that. So is there anything else that you and the team are working on, or any kind of like big initiatives that you're trying to get better at to position yourself here for 2024?
Yeah, I think the next couple things that we're really looking at is obviously it's a little bit tricky with kind of our property type and size and things like that to totally get on board with the total battery large mowers and things like that. But we're really starting to dive deep and get a lot of demos and things like that for some of this robotic mowing. I think it's going to be huge because it is something that I think once it kind of gets there and it's really getting close, that I think is going to really help that labor crunch.
Yeah.
And then keep us doing skilled work, right? So if we can get away from just mowing and we can spend more times on the beds and more time on, the pruning and all that stuff, I think that's where this industry is moving, is the mowing's going to be taken care of. And then we're going to have skilled laborers taking care of the more like gardening style aspect of the landscape maintenance. So we're really starting to focus on that. And then over the last probably 2 to 3 years, we've really taken a deep dive into the battery handheld equipment. We've got multiple urban crews that are in, highly, dense multi-rise and mid-rise, high-rise facilities, and they've got courtyards and rooftops and all these things. So we've completely switched them over to battery, which has been awesome for us. So,
I've seen the advancement on the handheld equipment really be. I think they're getting, if not already there, they're getting really close to being, because there's the convenience factor of gas that just candidly is hard or may not ever be, completely offset of being able to fill up and pull the string and keep going. But with some of the power supply and power delivery batteries to outfit trailers and things like that, or not necessarily having to have multiple, dozens of batteries for every single individual unit, that development there is exciting to see. Some of the trailer technology come along that really kind of take the strain off the individual piece of equipment. So that's been exciting. We've seen some pretty neat stuff start to trickle out about actual team member tracking and seeing, how do we treat an individual of our team like a production unit to see, hey, is there opportunity for training of, hey, you're taking the left route around, around this building, which is causing you to have to come back and exchange, a piece of equipment versus going around to the right and being able to verify or even instruct, in real time about, hey, which directions and how do we route. People spend a ton of time routing trucks to properties.
Process maps.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly. But process mapping physically, when we get to the site, how do we get off the truck? What's the most effective or most efficient routes, there to cut grass, to pull weeds and edge and trim and all that good stuff. So it's exciting to see where we're headed. But Ryan, really appreciate you joining us here for a few minutes, and man, just thrilled to see you elevate through the organization, and excited to see you put your stamp on it even more as we move forward here.
No, it's been awesome, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and just talk about the industry. So hopefully someone got a little bit of a nugget out of that today, and really appreciate you guys at Weathermatic. It's been influential for us and just huge. So
thanks, bud. Well, hey, good luck in your race, and you'll have to call me back and let me know if you made it. Okay.
All right. Well, sounds good. Hopefully, I'll give you a little shout out at the end there if I make it across the finish line. So
love it, man. All right. Hey, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again so much.